Hello, everybody. Rick the Retired Texan here. Hope you had a great Christmas and New Year's. We had a lot of family here at the house and a lot of good food and fun, and then we had a real quiet New Year's. We don't go anywhere on New Year's hardly anymore because of all the folks that are out driving that shouldn't be. So we just kind of hang around the house most of the time now. And all that went good. And then after that, I spent a few days kind of sick, which wasn't too much fun. And now I'm just sitting here waiting for this big, bad ice storm that's supposed to hit tonight. Got the animals fed a few minutes ago and got everything weatherized. So I guess I'm ready. We'll see. I want to kind of give you a heads up that this is going to be a long video, okay? Please don't check out on me though, because there's no way for me to do this topic quickly. There's just no way. What I'll do though is I'll put in some chapter breaks so that you can scroll through when you need to and all that kind of stuff. But I want to talk about marriage. My wife and I got married in 1980. We've been married 44 and a half years. And we dated for 2 years. We have been very happily married the whole time, pretty much. The first 2 or 3 years, we were just little kids, honestly, right out of high school. And I still had a lot of growing up to do, and I had a bad temper and all that kind of stuff. I never hit my wife or anything, but I had a bad temper and all that kind of stuff. And I was a jealous kid, and I'd say things to her I shouldn't and all that kind of stuff. And she put up with me and let me get through that phase. And we had our first child 5 years after we got married, at 23 years old. We got married at 18. But this has been, in all honesty, a pretty storybook kind of marriage, and still is. And my wife and I have had a lot of people through the years ask us, what's your secret? Are y'all as happy as it seems like you are? And, have you ever gone through a period where things got really bad or any of that kind of stuff? And the truth is no. It's been good. It's not been perfect because we're humans, but it's been real good. And I had a friend come by the house a couple of months ago, and it was so nice to see this guy. He and I used to be big time running buddies, and I hadn't seen him in a long time. And he came by the house to visit me, and both my wife and I were just so happy to see him. And right before he left the house after visiting with us for hours, he said, I want both of y'all to know that what y'all have done in your marriage is just something that I look up to and respect. And I wish I would have lived the kind of life that the two of you have lived. And he said, things are going pretty good now, but I wish, looking back, that I had managed my relationships with my wives, and he's had several, the way that y'all have manage your relationship with each other. And he said, what can y'all tell me? Just tell me how you did it. How did you make it work? He literally asked us that here at the house right before he left. And we had a nice conversation with him and everything. And I've been thinking about that ever since. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to put it out there on my YouTube channel. I'm going to talk about this for all those folks that are out there that are a whole lot younger than us, and maybe even some of you older folks that would like to explore the possibility of doing things different than you're doing them now. I'm just going to put it out there. And let me just say before I get started that dealing with other human beings is much more of an art than it is a science. Okay? It just is. So the way that my wife and I do things may not work for you at all. Okay? I'm not going on here acting like I'm a marriage counselor. I'm just going to put it out there how my wife and I have lived our lives. What we've in my recommendations are going to be based on things that we've done right and things we've done wrong. But all in all, how it's turned out really, really good. So there's no point in giving me a whole bunch of comments in the comment section about how stupid I am and how bad my advice is. I'm just telling you how we do it. If you don't agree, then do it your way. And if you think your way needs to be broadcasted out to the world, then start your own YouTube channel. I'm not gonna get in that. I've already told some of you knotheads that I'm not gonna go down into that comment section and get in a big keyboard fight with anybody. So here it goes. This is Rick, the retired Texan's view on marriage and how to make it work. And here are the key components: communication and how you interact with each other and how you interact with other people outside your marriage, money, parenting, politics and religion, and intimacy. I'm going to go over each one of these topics separately. This is all going to be in one video. I'm obviously not a fast-talking guy, but try to stick with me. There might be something here. There might be something here that you can use. So let's start off with internal and internally communicating with each other within the marriage, and external communications with other people. First of all, let me just say, when you're speaking to each other, it's not sometimes what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. And I'd go so far as to say most of the time, it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. So I think you need to think about who you're talking to, how important that person is to you in your life, and the tone that you're in, the body language that you're using when you're talking to them. Be cognizant of that. Show some grace. This is your husband, or this is your wife. Be careful about that. You can build in your communication style and tone, you can build a negative routine that just becomes your norm with each other. And that is toxic. It's terrible. It just gets to a point where every time you interact with each other, it just has a negative feel about it from the very first word, no matter which one of you is talking. There are relationships out there that are just that way. And you know what? I think more than anything, it's just a bad habit. It's just how you've allowed your communication styles with each other to evolve in a competitive, one-upsman kind of style. And that's just not how you talk to the most important person in your life. My opinion is, if you make a strong effort to be very respectful and loving and have a calm, respectful tone when you're talking to your spouse, my opinion is that will almost always be reciprocated. Lots of people out there are different. These are not golden rules. These are just what goes on around here, in my opinion now. But I think most of the time, the tone and style of communicating that you put out there to your spouse will be reciprocated. Especially from in my opinion, especially from the wife. If the husband takes a leadership role, and as he should, in my opinion, on how this is going to happen, then I think the wife will typically reciprocate. So if you want a better style of communicating, a more loving way of communicating with your wife, it probably needs to start with you. And I'm going to say that it's probably going to be reciprocated if you do that. Be a good listener. And I'm going to say men have more trouble with this than the women. But be a good listener. When your wife's telling you about her day and you'd rather watch the game or whatever it is you think you'd rather be doing at that moment, just put it down for a minute. If she's willing to share with you something that's important to her or something that went on in her day, you need to listen. You need to stop and genuinely listen. I don't mean hear what she's saying. I mean listen and absorb what she's saying. And men are the guiltiest of that, but there's some women out there that probably need to do that too. Choose your battles. Choose your battles wisely. Most of the time, there shouldn't be a battle. Every now and then, there's going to be a little battle. But you need to choose those wisely. Don't have battles just to have battles. A bunch of unnecessary battles will cause you to lose the war, if you know what I mean. A bunch of constant, unnecessary little battles can cause the relationship to come to an end. So don't be disagreeable just to be disagreeable. It's a terrible habit that I see a lot of husbands and wives do with each other. They just can't seem to agree on anything. And sometimes it almost feels like it's just because they want to disagree. They want to be disagreeable for some reason. These things are in large part, not in every case, but in large part, these things are a choice. You choose to be a disagreeable spouse. You can also choose to be a graceful, loving, understanding spouse that is rarely disagreeable. If you'll take that approach, when something is important to you that you do disagree with, you'll be heard. And the other person will have a lot more empathy and concern for your for whatever it is you're disagreeing about, if it's rare. If you're just disagreeing because you disagree with everything, then it gets to the point where the other person just don't care if you disagree or not. It's just you being you. Tell your spouse on a regular basis. On a regular basis. Drop all your inhibitions. You got things inside your head you would like to say to your spouse, but you just can't bring yourself to do it. Drop those inhibitions. Okay? This is not just somebody out on the street. This is the most important person in your life. Tell your spouse on a regular basis how much you appreciate them. That's a scanner we have on the property, so I know if there's something moving around out there. Could be animals or something else. But tell your spouse on a regular basis how much you appreciate them. Don't hold that in. Don't think it without telling them. They need to hear that occasionally. We're talking about the mother or the father of your children. Tell them you appreciate them. Don't talk down to them. Never talk down to your husband or your wife as if you are much more intelligent than they are. I've said this in other scenarios when you're interacting with other human beings, but it's especially important in this scenario. You do not always have to be the smartest person in the room. Please understand that. Don't always talk down to your spouse as if you think you're more intelligent than they are. Okay? All this stuff is common sense, but sometimes you need to hear it and put it into action. Men, you need to make sure your wife feels safe. She needs to know that you've got her back and your home and this life that you're living with her is a safe zone. You keep her safe. You take care of her. And you need to genuinely listen to her when she has some sort of challenge going on in her life, some sort of concern. You need to stop what you're doing. And like I said a little while ago, you need to listen to what she has to say and let her tell you about the things that are going on in her life that are difficult for her. But do not automatically assume that she wants you to solve the problem for her, because I'm going to tell you, if she's talking to you about a problem she has as far as an interaction with another human being, something going on at work, whatever, I can just about promise you she's telling you because she needs your mental support. She needs to vent with you. But she does not necessarily want you to solve that problem for her. Don't automatically think that you need to ride up on your white horse because she's telling you about a problem and you need to solve it for her. Most of the time, that's not what your wife is looking for. And when you start automatically putting out all these solutions to whatever's going on with her, that's bothering her, If you're too quick to start handing out all the solutions, then that's going to make her feel like you think you're smarter than her when you're just trying to be helpful. But that's how she's going to take it. She's going to think that you're putting it out there like, hey, you got problems. I'm the one that can tell you how to solve all these problems. That's not what she's looking for. I promise you it's not. And if you do that every time she's telling you about something, it's going to be very frustrating for her, and then she's going to be tempted not to tell you anymore. She's just going to hold it in. And then when things are not going well for her, she's going to be in herself, and you're going to wonder what in the heck's wrong with her, and she's not going to be telling you about it. Women, your husband needs to feel appreciated. He needs to feel respected. And you need to give him his space. We're pretty simple. I think women are a little bit more complicated, honestly, than men, and I don't mean that in a negative way. But I think there are a lot of wives out there that need to understand that a man really needs to feel like he is appreciated for what he does. Men just naturally want to be the provider, the caretaker of the home. That's just the way that's just the way we're built. And you may be bringing in most of the money or whatever. You may be working even harder. I understand all that. But the way a man's mind works, the way a man is geared, is he needs to feel like he is appreciated for the role that he's playing in the family. And he needs to feel that you respect, that you appreciate that, and that you respect him. And then there are times when, especially men, women too, but especially men, sometimes we need our space. And we need to be at peace. We need to be somewhere quiet and left alone. And that goes for women too. Okay, I'm doing the best I can not to upset too many people here. But those are the main things that a woman needs to think about as far as interactions with her husband. Now let's talk about interactions with other people. This is probably where a bunch of you are going to disagree, and that's fine. But you cannot be friends with members of the opposite sex unless they are also friends with your wife or your husband. Opposite sex friendships outside the marriage are bad. I know a bunch of you are going to disagree with that. I'm sorry. It's my opinion. But I think that, and can it work sometimes? Maybe sometimes. But I'm going to say the vast majority of the time, some married guy that's got a female friend out there, and I'm talking about a friend. I'm not talking about some casual acquaintance or something like that. I'm talking about a true friend. If you're married and you've got a true friend of the opposite sex that is primarily your friend and not your spouse's, your spouse may not have much of a relationship with them at all. That's bad. You're setting yourself up for a problem at some point. Don't do it. Um, I I know that there's some out there that can pull that off, but it's dangerous. All right, let's talk about time apart. Time apart from each other, is that a good thing? Absolutely, it is. You need your space. You need some independence. Get away from each other occasionally. Go have a good time. Go away for a few days if you want to, and go have some fun with some friends or whatever. There's nothing wrong with it. What's that old saying? Time apart makes the heart grow fonder or whatever. I don't know what that saying is, something like that. But it's good. It's good for the relationship. I've been on a lot of hunting trips and fishing trips and golf trips and all that kind of stuff. And it's always fun to have that sense of independence away from the normal routine. And you know what? Usually about the second day into that, I want to get home to my wife. And it feels good to come home. It feels knowing that she's going to be there when I get there, waiting on me. And it makes me want to hurry up and get home. I've had a lot of fun, but now I want to get home. And it's fun to see her after not seeing her a few days. I think it's healthy for a lot of reasons. But let me also say that these outings like that need to be the kind of outings that a married person would do away from their spouse. So if you're going to go out on a girls' trip or a guy's trip, they need to be the kind of trips that some married women would go on or some married men would go on. And they need to be trips with other married people for the most part. You know, a group of women are going, maybe one of them are single, it's not the end of the world, but for the most part, it needs to be a group of married people. Because when married people go off and have fun like that without their spouse, they act like they're married. When single people are out having fun and doing the things that they do, they're very open to not acting married because they're not. And that's not the kind of person you should be out doing things with without your spouse. I know that's going to rub a bunch of you wrong. I'm sorry, but I highly recommend those kind of outings be with other married people. And you ain't got no business going to places that single people go. You got no business going to a party without your spouse. You got no business going to bars and stuff like that without your spouse. Okay? That's where all this starts to derail and turn into a very unhealthy, bad thing. So I'm going to close that's the whole interacting with each other, interacting with other people topic, and I'm going to close that section out by just saying one more time, you need to remember this is the most important person in your life. And when you're interacting with the most important person in your life, you need to treat them as such. Okay? Now let's talk about money. This is where there's going to be a lot of disagreement on this one. But this is how we do it. This is a little bit personal, I guess, to put it out there to the world, but I'm not going to get into dollars and cents. I'm just going to talk about the philosophy on how we handle it. We don't have money arguments here at this house. We never have. And let me tell you how we do it. First of all, let me just tell you, I don't like Dave Ramsey. I'm just going to put that out there. He'll never hear this video. I don't like the guy. I'm not saying I disagree with him, because I agree with a whole bunch of stuff he says, but I don't like how he says it. And His personality rubs me wrong. But he's right about one thing. Debt is awful. Debt will ruin your life. It will ruin your marriage. It will ruin your marriage. Now here's mine and my wife's view on debt. This is how we've always done it. It's always worked. Never had a problem. And trust me, there was a lot of lean years on the money side, but we never had a problem with it. And we're retired now. We've been retired a year, and I can tell you the lean years have come back. But we do okay. And I'm going to tell you why we do okay. Because we hate debt. Our opinion is you should never have more than 2 debts. Your house and 1 vehicle. And I know Dave Ramsey would tell you should never be in debt on a car and all that, and he's probably right, but telling you how we do it. Those 2 debts should be the end of your debt. And those 2 debts combined should never be more than 25% of your household net income. If those 2 debts exceed 25% of your net paychecks coming into the house, then you've either bought a house or a car or both that you couldn't afford, in my opinion. You know, we all want stuff. We all do. You know, I see these big old homes that these movie stars and live in, and I see what they drive, and would I love to have some of that stuff? Yes. Would I love to have a 2,000-acre ranch full of deer? Absolutely, I would. Would I love to have a big old F-250 Ford King ranch out in the driveway? I sure would. But I don't make the kind of money for that stuff. I buy what I can afford. We buy what we can afford. And from a debt standpoint, that's 1 house payment, 1 car payment, and that's it. Anything else that would require debt, you can't afford it, and you just need to move on. You can't afford it. My opinion, our opinion here at this house. We don't have much money. I promise you we don't. We don't have any money problems either, dealing with each other. Quit thinking about how much money baseball players make and how much money Donald Trump has and how much money Dave Ramsey likes to sneak in all his videos telling you how much he has. Quit thinking about all those people. Those are 0.5% of this country. Quit using them as your metric for success when it comes to owning stuff. That stuff would be fun to have, but you can live a very happy, successful life and have a whole lot less than all that stuff that you know, that seems like every time we turn on the TV, there's somebody else making $20 million or whatever. Trust me, folks. Look at the average household income in the United States, and it's well below $100,000, and all this stuff that is constantly stuck in our face all the time, that all these extremely rich entertainers and all these folks have. Don't let those be your metric for having for feeling satisfied about what you're accomplishing in life as far as having material things. There are all those people are living in a world that 99% of us do not live in. I was watching a football game Sunday, and they were talking about some receiver that needed one more catch to get his $500,000 bonus, and they just kept on and on and on talking about it. I'm thinking, what the heck is wrong with y'all? You got the average person sitting here watching this daggum game probably makes $60,000, and you've talked about this guy's $500,000 bonus if he catches whatever many yards or whatever. They just talked about it on and on again. I mean, why is everybody in the media so insensitive with the rest of us out in the world about all that stuff? So just ignore that crap and live within your means. Debt is not your friend. I don't care, the rich man, poor man telling you to borrow money so you can go get rich. Come on. If you want to believe that, you can. But if you want to be happy, if you want to be at peace with money, then avoid debt. I think it's okay to have one car payment and one house payment, as long as the two combined don't add up to more than 25% of your take-home pay. Yeah, it would be nice if you could not have the car payment, but typically a house needs a couple of vehicles, and there needs to be one extremely reliable vehicle. I know most men are going to want their wife traveling around in something extremely reliable and all that. And sometimes that means you need to go borrow some money to get a car. They just cost so much. And if Dave Ramsey don't like that, then I don't care. That's my opinion. The way that I've always approached material things is whatever I do have, I take extremely good care of it. We always have. Our first house, we paid $42,500 for it. We had it built brand new. It was 1,000 square feet. It was 1,050. It was 1,050 square feet. 1,050 square feet. We bought it in, I think, 1983, I believe. And, I kept that yard perfect, and I took care. My wife was meticulous about the inside, and we took such great pride in that place. When you drove down that street, you weren't driving down a street full of mansions, but you dang sure knew where I lived, because it was the place that looked pretty. It was really nice. Took a lot of great pride in it. And, so feel good. You may not have everything you want, but feel good about what you do have. Be appreciative about what you do have, and you'll feel good about the whole thing if you get everything in the proper perspective. Buy what you can afford, and the things that you have that you can't afford, make people stop and take a look at it and say, wow, that's not a mansion, but that's a nice place. It's always been wow, that's not a $100,000 pickup truck right there, but it sure is nice. I drive an 8-year-old 3/4 ton Dodge pickup. And I had a flatbed put on the back of it because I wrecked it. I tore up the bed and I put a flatbed on it. I put some cool looking tires on it. And it's paid for, and it's been paid for. And everywhere I go, it seems like everywhere I go, everybody tells me when I'm pumping gas, people always are pulling over. It seems like all the time saying, "Man, your truck looks cool. That truck looks nice." And that makes me feel good because I take such good care of it, and people notice that. And no, it's not a brand new $100,000 truck, but I'm happy. Would I like to have a brand new $100,000 truck? Yes, I would, but I can't afford it, so I'm not going to do it. But what I do have, I'm very proud of, and people notice how well I care for it. Quit worrying about, what does old Ramsey say? I just tell you I don't like him, but obviously I've paid a lot of attention to him. Quit buying stuff. You can't quit going in debt to buy stuff you can't afford to impress people you don't even like. I think he says something like that. If old Dave Ramsey would just change his attitude, I might like him better because I do agree with a lot of stuff he says. Don't be a slave to the bank. You and your spouse will be a lot happier if you live within your means. Do a budget. Get you a simple Excel spreadsheet and do a budget. Now, I'm going to tell you how we distribute the money amongst us here. And this may sound a little weird to a lot of you, but it works. It's always worked really good for us. So get your budget, get your Excel spreadsheet and do a budget. And here's what you need to do in our opinion. You need to have 3 checking accounts. 1 savings account, 1 retirement account. Okay? As far as your 3 checking accounts, we have 1 checking account we call the house account. It's where all the bills get paid from. All the monthly necessities of life come from that account. Okay? Then we have a savings account that we put as much money in as we can in as frequently as we can. That's for the things that pop up in life. You want to go on vacation at some point. You need to fix an air conditioning unit. You need to buy some tires for one of the cars. Things pop up in life. That's what that savings account for. It's an emergency account or whatever you want to call it, savings account. Put as much money as you can in there. And you need to budget a very specific amount of money that you are going to put in there every time y'all get paid. Then you have 2 more checking accounts, 1 for each of you. So you put money in your retirement account. If you have 401ks, then that would be your retirement account at your work. You need to put however much money in your 401k that your employer will match. After that, not one more dollar. If your employer will match 25 or 50 cents or on the dollar up to 7% of your pay, for example, then put 7% of your money in that 401k. Then go get another outside entity to set you up another retirement account. And every time you have an opportunity to save more than that 7% that you're putting in your 401ks, make a deposit into that account. We use Edward Jones. We like Edward Jones because they're franchise locations and you have a very personal relationship with the person that's investing that money for you. But there's also a lot of Edward Jones oversight to make sure that that person is not doing anything crazy with your money. It's kind of the best of all worlds. You get the oversight of a big company watching every move they make, but you also have that very personal relationship. Now, most of your money for retirement should be saved through your 401ks at work, if you have them. And then anything else that you can save for retirement, put it in your personal retirement account. And then you've got your savings account for emergencies. You've got your account that you put money in that pays all the bills that come in every month, and your food and all the necessities of life. And then whatever's left over, after you budget for each of those buckets, whatever's left over, split it. You have a personal checking account. Your spouse has a personal checking account where all the leftover expendable money goes. That way you feel like you have some independence when it comes to the money. You want to go buy something, you don't have to sit down and have a conversation about it with your spouse every time. You want to go buy a $200 pair of shoes or whatever, you don't have to sit down with your spouse and discuss it. You don't have to be concerned about whether or not you're spending something that y'all can't afford. If it was allocated to you as expendable income into your spending account, then you have the freedom to do with that whatever you want. Okay, so let me recap this to make sure I didn't confuse anybody. It's important that you fund your retirements either through your work accounts or a personal retirement account you have set up. You obviously have to fund your checking account to pay all the necessary bills every month. You need a savings account that you can access quickly and easily if something goes wrong or there's a big ticket item that needs to be bought around the house. And then after those things are funded, whatever's left is expendable fund money, if you want to call it that. Split it. And that's how we do it. And it has worked as smooth as silk forever. We've been married 44 and a half years, and it just works. And it might not work for you, but that's what we do. And I hope I didn't confuse anybody on that. I know a whole bunch of you are going to disagree, and that's perfectly fine. I'm just talking about what we do. All right. Parenting. Here's a big one. And I'm not going to get into how to raise kids, because what I'm talking about in this whole video is marriage, right? But here's what I'll say about parenting, because parenting is one of the topics that can ruin a marriage, make the marriage much, much more difficult than it needs to be, or potentially end it. The whole parenting topic. So here's some of the top line items I'll say about parenting. We've got 2 girls. They're grown. They've both been away from home for a long time now, but we never had any issues raising our kids. It never caused any kind of a relationship issue between me and my wife, because there's certain things that we were always on the same page on the really important stuff. And here's the first thing I'll say about parenting. Never, ever, ever correct your spouse when they're disciplining the children. Don't do that. Your children need to feel like the discipline that's coming from the parents is simpatico. It's the discipline's not coming from mom or dad. The discipline, whatever discipline is being doled out by either parent, is fully supported by both. Never correct your spouse when they are disciplining one of the children. It's one of the cardinal sins in a marriage, in my opinion. And that's where parenting can cause some very serious problems in a marriage. If you don't agree with how your spouse is disciplining one of your children, then that is a discussion for the bed in the bedroom with the door closed. It's not a discussion to have in front of the children. And you obviously both need to talk about your philosophies on disciplining the children. You need to be on the same page about the different levels of discipline and your philosophies on discipline, and y'all need to get that agreed on between the two of you before it's passed on to the children. Okay? Disciplining the children has got to be done with a very consistent type of message from both parents. Everybody wants their kids to be all they can be. Okay? That's normal. But some of you are sacrificing the family's finances because you want your child to be the most popular child, or the child that has the most accomplishments, the most awards, the most trophies, the most popular. So you put all your finances and all of your time is leveraged against these goals that you have. They probably are not even goals that your kids care about one way or the other for the most part. There's too many parents out there that are trying to live their lives through their children, and they're willing to sacrifice the health of the family so that their children can reach these accomplishments that are not all that important to the children. They're things that really that you're trying to accomplish through your children. I've seen families just almost bankrupt themselves so that their kids can go do something competitive or whatever, and the kids could about half the time could even care less about it. And in the meantime, the health of the family's finances and time is being mismanaged for foolish, unnecessary goals for your kids. I'm not saying you shouldn't be, don't take that too far, and don't say that and don't tell me that you don't have to tell me that, parents should do everything they can for their kids. I understand that. But there's logic and moderation in everything. And some of you are ruining your marriages over either how you're disciplining your kids and the lack of communication you're having between the two of you on that, or the things that you're providing for your kids that you can't afford. You just can't afford. You can't afford to give your kids that much of your money, or you can't afford to give your kids that much of your time. And some of you are ruining your marriages over that. I'm not going to get into anything else about parenting, but that's my thoughts on that. Let's talk about politics and religion. This will be, some of you probably laugh at this one, but if you and your wife or you and your husband are not on the same page for the most part on politics and or religion, I'm going to say that more than likely, y'all are going to have a bad marriage. Because I think that's on the politics side. I think that's indicative of how you're potentially not compatible. You're just not compatible and probably shouldn't be married, and I know a bunch of you are going to disagree with that. But, if neither one of you are very political, then that's fine. It's perfectly fine. If both of you are far left wingers, that's fine. If both of you are way out there on the right somewhere, that's fine. If both of you are kind of independents or just not very politically oriented, that's fine. But if one of you are way out there on the left somewhere and the other one's way out there on the right somewhere, I think that tells me that the two of you have very different views on life, values, etc. And that tells me, in my opinion, that it was probably an ill-advised marriage in the first place. Sorry, that's just how I feel. I know that James Carville, I think his name is, him and him, he's a far left-wing guy and his wife is far right, and they love each other, and that's fine. There's exceptions to everything, but I think that's bad in most cases. If one of you are very, very religious and really live a life of faith, Christian faith, and the other is an atheist, or the other is a Jew, then I think that's very difficult. If you're both kind of on the same page about religion, whether it be Christian, non-Christian, atheist, agnostic, whatever, if you're both on the same page, then I think that's fine. But if you're on opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to religion, I feel like that's not good. And at some point, you're either gonna have to get on the same page, or it's probably going to be indicative of a marriage that's not going to make it. And that's just where I am with that. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's talk about intimacy now before we wrap up. Do not allow your relationship to evolve into a roommate scenario. I've seen it time and time again with other people. To me, it's sad, and the mental and physical intimacy aspects of a marriage cannot be allowed to erode. You must not allow your relationship to evolve into some sort of life or just some sort of partnership, roommate kind of scenario. That's not good. Do not let that physical and mental intimacy that you had when you started your relationship, do not let that erode. You have to be proactive at maintaining your intimacy with each other. It's extremely important. Do the best you can to keep yourself looking nice, well maintained, and attractive to your spouse. Be physically and mentally attractive to your spouse. Have that attitude. That same attitude that you had with that person back in the old days, when you were dating. Don't let yourself just go. Don't let your body just go. Don't let your hygiene just go. You know, how you care for your appearance, just don't let it just go and erode away. Because when you start losing respect for yourself and your appearance, your spouse will probably view that as you're losing respect for yourself and them as well. You know, my wife gets up every day. She always has. It doesn't matter if she's just spending the day with me here at home. She's going to get up every single day and she's going to make herself as attractive as she can. She does it for herself and she does it for me. And that makes me feel good that she still wants to look nice for me, just like she always did. Now listen, I'm not saying that we don't have our imperfections, and I'm not saying we need to be perfect all the time or any of that kind of stuff. So don't blow what I'm saying off into some weird proportion. We all get old and you know, we gain weight and whatever we do. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being the best you can be and maintaining your appearance and being as attractive as you can be for yourself and your spouse. It'll make you feel better, and your spouse will appreciate knowing that you still want to be visually attractive to them. Guarantee you. Never let that physical intimacy die. Never let it die. Keep your hands on each other. Don't stop touching each other. Don't stop holding hands. Don't stop hugging each other. Don't drift away from each other physically. That's just part of being married, is that physical, that mental and physical relationship. When it comes to, I don't want to get too racy here and embarrass myself or anybody else, but when it comes to physical intimacy, both of you need to maintain that desire. You need to work at it. You need to be proactive about it. There is nothing worse in a marriage than a mixed-matched libido. It's if both of you have lost your libido, that's fine. Okay? If that's the way you both enjoy living life, then that's okay. But when it comes to that physical intimacy thing that I'm talking about, that y'all know what I'm talking about, if one of you still has a good libido and the other one don't, then that has to be fixed. And it has to be fixed by the one that don't. That is very fixable. It can be corrected. If it's something going on inside of you that's caused you to lose your libido, then you need to get it fixed. You need to go see a doctor. You need to address it from a hormonal standpoint. If it's all within you, then you need to get it fixed. And there's plenty of ways to do that, believe me. I'm not going to go into all that right now, but if you've lost your libido and your spouse has not, and your spouse still has a good, strong libido, then you need to get it fixed. It's not acceptable just for you to have sex with your spouse just to do your spouse a favor, or just to give your spouse something they want that you don't want, but you're willing to do it anyway. That's just not acceptable. You have to get your libido fixed if it's broken. And like I said, that can be done. You have to be, you have to do a little research and be proactive about it, and that's easily correctable. That's not good, folks. And I'm sorry to be I'm sorry to get into the subject too much, because I don't want to turn this into a big sex thing, but that's a marriage killer. It is an absolute marriage killer. And that's just not acceptable. You gotta, I went through a period there where my libido was gone. And I've got a video on my channel about testosterone replacement therapy. And my libido just went down the tubes, and that was not acceptable. That was not acceptable to me. It just wasn't. And I owed that to my wife not to allow that to continue, and I didn't. I was very proactive about that and got it fixed. I guess the last thing I'll say about this is, on a regular basis, tell your spouse what they mean to you. Tell them how much you love them and what they mean to you. What's more important than your spouse? Nothing. Nothing. As much as y'all love your kids, nothing's more important in your life than your spouse. That's the attitude you need to take. I'm sorry this has been such a long video. There was no way to do this quickly, especially me. And but I hope there's some value in this. If you like what I'm doing on this channel, please subscribe. If you like this video, hit the like button. And again, I'm sorry it took so long. I'll put in some chapter breaks, like I said. You may have to watch it 2 or 3 times to get to the end of it. But I sure do appreciate you tuning in, and I wish you all the best.